The audiobook of Reverend Insanity is produced by Teddy. Section 1. Leaping to death, the demon heart remains unrepentant. Fang Yuan, obediently hand over the spring and autumn cicada, and I'll make it quick for you. Old demon Fang, do not foolishly attempt to resist. Today, the righteous sects have united to crush your lair. The net has long been laid here, and this time you will surely meet a terrible end. Fang Yuan, you damned demon, you killed millions of people to cultivate the spring and autumn cicada. You have committed an unforgivable crime, a sin that cannot be absolved, and it is beyond description. Devil, 300 years ago you insulted me, took away my purity, killed my entire family, and exterminated my 9 clans. From that moment on, I wished I could eat your flesh and drink your blood. Today, I will make you wish you were dead. Fang Yuan, in his tattered green robe, with disheveled hair and covered in blood, looked around. The mountain wind blew the blood robe, making it flutter and rustle like a battle flag. Bright red blood gushed out from hundreds of wounds on his body. After just standing for a while, a large puddle of blood had already formed at Fang Yuan's feet. Surrounded by enemies, there is no way out anymore. The overall situation has been determined, and today there is no doubt of death. Fang Yuan was keenly aware of the situation, but even as death approached, he remained unflustered, his expression calm. His gaze is deep and mysterious, like a deep well, as unfathomable as ever. The righteous heroes besieging him were either the esteemed leaders of prominent factions or the renowned young heroes known far and wide. At this moment, they were tightly surrounding Fang Yuan, some roaring, some sneering, some squinting with vigilant eyes, and some covering their wounds, looking on in fear. They didn't take action, all wary of Fang Yuan's last-ditch counterattack. After 3 tense hours of confrontation, the sun set in the west, and the afterglow of the sunset ignited the evening clouds by the mountains, creating a dazzling display like fire. Fang Yuan, who had been as still as a statue, slowly turned around. The heroes immediately stirred and took a big step back. At this moment, the gray-white stones beneath Fang Yuan's feet had already been stained dark red with blood. His pale face, made even paler from excessive blood loss, was illuminated by the evening glow, suddenly adding a touch of radiant beauty. Looking at the green mountains and the setting sun, Fang Yuan smiled softly. Green mountains and setting sun, autumn moon and spring breeze. Indeed, morning is like green silk and evening turns to snow. Right and wrong, success and failure, all turn to emptiness in an instant. When saying this, various scenes from my past life on Earth suddenly appeared before my eyes. He was originally a student from Huaxiao on Earth, who by chance crossed over to this world. After 300 years of twists and turns, and over 200 years traversing the world, more than 500 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Many memories deeply buried in my heart come alive at this moment, vividly reappearing before my eyes. After all, it ended in failure. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart, feeling somewhat emotional, but he did not regret it. He had already anticipated this result. He was mentally prepared when he made the choice in the first place. The so-called demonic path is to not cultivate good results, to kill and set fires. The heavens and earth do not tolerate it. The whole world is an enemy. Yet one still wants to indulge freely. If the newly refined spring and autumn cicada is effective, I will still be a demon in my next life. Thinking this, Fang Yuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Old demon, what are you laughing at? Everyone be careful. The demon is about to make a comeback. Quickly hand over the spring and autumn cicada. As the heroes were pressing in, at that moment, with a loud bang, Fang Yuan resolutely self-destructed. The spring rain falls gently, silently nourishing the Qingmao mountain. The night is already deep, and a gentle cool breeze is blowing through the light rain. Qingmishan is not dark. From the mountainside to the foot of the mountain, it sparkles with many shimmering lights, as if draped in a brilliant band of light. These lights come from one tall, stilted building after another. Although it cannot be called a sea of lights, it still has a scale of thousands. The ancient Moon Mountain Village, located on Qingmao Mountain, adds a rich human presence to the vast and tranquil mountains. In the very center of Guyue Mountain Village, there is a magnificent pavilion. At this moment, a grand sacrificial ceremony is being held, making it even more brightly lit and resplendent. The ancestors bless us, hoping that many talented youths will emerge from this enlightenment ceremony, adding new blood and hope to the family. The leader of the Guyue clan, a middle-aged man with graying temples, dressed in solemn white ceremonial robes, knelt on the brown-yellow floor, sitting upright, hands clasped together, eyes closed in sincere prayer. He faced the high black lacquered altar, which had 3 tiers dedicated to the ancestral tablets. On both sides of the tablets were placed red copper incense burners, with smoke curling up. Behind him, more than 10 others were also kneeling. They wore loose white ceremonial robes and were the elders and spokespersons of the family, holding authority in various aspects. After a prayer, the leader of the Guyue clan bent down first, spreading his hands flat, palms pressed tightly against the floor, and kowtowed. His forehead touched the brown floor, making a soft thudding sound. The elders behind him all had solemn expressions and silently followed suit. In an instant, the sound of foreheads colliding with the floor filled the ancestral hall. The ceremony was over, and everyone slowly stood up from the floor and quietly walked out of the solemn ancestral hall. In the corridor, everyone let out a silent sigh, and the atmosphere relaxed. The sound of discussion gradually rose. Time really flies. In the blink of an eye, a year has passed. The last enlightenment ceremony feels like it happened just yesterday, still vivid in my memory. Tomorrow is the annual enlightenment ceremony. I wonder what kind of new blood from families will emerge this year. I hope a youth with first-class qualifications will appear. Our Guyue clan has not had such a genius for 3 years. Indeed, in recent years, talents have emerged in Baijiazai and Xiangjiadai. Especially Bai Ningbing from the Bai family, her talent is truly terrifying. It is unknown who mentioned the name Bai Ningbing, but a layer of worry inevitably appeared on the faces of the elders. This person's qualifications are extremely outstanding. In just 2 years, they have already reached the level of a third-turn Gu master. Among the younger generation, they are truly leading the way. Even the older generation feels the pressure from this rising star. Given time, he will undoubtedly become the pillar of Baijiazai. At the very least, he will be a strong individual capable of standing on his own. No one has ever doubted this. However, among the youths participating in the enlightenment ceremony this year, there is not a lack of hope. Indeed, a genius boy has emerged from the Fang family. He could speak at 3 months and walk at 4 months. By the age of 5, he could compose poetry and recite verses, exceptionally intelligent and extraordinarily talented. Unfortunately, his parents died early, and he is now being raised by his uncle and aunt. Well, this is someone with early intelligence and great ambition. In recent years, I have also heard of his works Toast, Ode to Plum Blossoms, and Jiang Chengzi, truly a genius. The chief of the Guyue clan was the last to leave the ancestral hall, slowly closing the door, and then heard the voices of the elders discussing in the corridor. Suddenly, I knew that the elders were discussing a young man named Fang Yuan. As the head of a clan, one naturally pays attention to those outstanding and exceptional descendants. And Fang Yuan is the most outstanding and dazzling among the younger generation. Experience shows that those who have an extraordinary memory from a young age, or possess strength comparable to that of an adult, often have excellent qualifications for cultivation. If this child measures up to A-level qualifications, with proper cultivation, he might be able to compete with Bai Ningbing. Even if he has B-level qualifications, he will surely be able to stand on his own in the future and become a banner for the Guyue clan. However, with his early wisdom, the possibility of B-level qualifications is slim. He is very likely to be A-level. As this thought arose, the leader of the Guyue clan couldn't help but slightly curl the corners of his mouth, revealing a faint smile. Immediately, he coughed and said to the elders, "Everyone, it's getting late. For tomorrow's enlightenment hall, please make sure to rest well tonight and take care of your spirits." The elders were slightly taken aback by these words. In their exchanged glances, there was a hint of vigilance. The patriarch's words were subtle, but everyone understood their meaning. Every year, in order to compete for these talented juniors, the family elders argue with each other until their faces are red and they are covered in blood. It is time to properly conserve energy and wait until tomorrow to strive for that opportunity. Especially that Guyu Fang Yuan, the possibility of having first-class qualifications is very high. Moreover, his parents have already passed away, and he is one of the last two orphans of the Fang lineage. If he can be taken into this lineage and well cultivated, it can ensure the prosperity of this branch for 100 years without decline. However, let me say something unpleasant first. We must compete fairly and squarely, without resorting to underhanded tactics that would harm the unity of the family. All the elders, please keep this in mind, the clan leader said sternly. I dare not. I dare not. Always remember in your heart. Then I will take my leave. Please stay, chief. The elders, full of thoughts, dispersed one by one. Before long, the long corridor became quiet. The spring rain and slanting wind blew in through the window, and the clan leader gently stepped forward to the window. Suddenly, my mouth was filled with the fresh and moist mountain air, refreshing and invigorating. This is the third floor of the attic, and the clan leader can see most of the ancient Moon Mountain stronghold at a glance. At this moment in the deep night, most households in the village still have lights on, which is quite different from usual. Tomorrow is the opening ceremony, which concerns everyone's personal interests. An atmosphere of excitement and tension envelopes the hearts of the clan members, and naturally, many people are unable to sleep soundly. This is the hope for the future of the family. The clan leader sighed, with the lights reflecting in his eyes. At this moment, there is also a pair of bright eyes quietly watching the shimmering lights in the deep night, filled with complex emotions. Ancient Moon Mountain Village, this is 500 years ago. The spring and autumn cicada really works. Fang Yuan's eyes were deep as he stood by the window, letting the wind and rain hit him. The role of the spring and autumn cicada is to reverse time. Being ranked 7th among the top 10 strange poisons is certainly not insignificant. In short, it is rebirth. Using the spring and autumn cicada, I have been reborn and returned to 500 years ago. Fang Yuan stretched out his hand, staring intently at his young, somewhat pale palm, then slowly clenched it, feeling the reality of this moment with strength. The faint sound of light rain hitting the window pane was in his ears. He slowly closed his eyes and, after a while, opened them again, sighing softly. 500 years of experience really feels like a dream. But he clearly knows that this is definitely not a dream. Section 2. Awakening after 500 years in backlight. According to legend, there exists a river of time in this world that supports the flow of this world. By using the power of the spring and autumn cicadas, one can swim upstream and return to the past. Regarding this rumor, opinions are divided among the public. Many people do not believe it, while some are somewhat skeptical. Almost no one really believes it. Because every time the spring and autumn cicada is used, one must pay with their life, sacrificing their entire body and all their cultivation as the driving force. The cost is indeed too high, and what is even more unacceptable is that often one pays with their life, yet does not know the outcome. Even if someone has obtained the spring and autumn cicada, they wouldn't dare to use it carelessly without purpose. What if the rumors are false and it's just a scam? If it weren't for Fang Yuan being in a desperate situation, he wouldn't have used it so quickly. However, now Fang Yuan completely believes. The fact of iron is right in front of us, and it cannot be refuted. He has indeed been reborn. It's just a pity for this good Gu. It took a tremendous effort, slaughtering hundreds of thousands, causing the wrath of heaven and resentment of the people, and after much hardship, it was finally refined. Fang Yuan sighed inwardly. Although he was reborn, the spring and autumn cicada did not come with him. Humans are the spirit of all things, and the Gu is the essence of heaven and earth. There are countless strange and bizarre poisons. Some poisons will completely dissipate after 1 or 2 uses, while others can be reused as long as they are not overused. Perhaps the spring and autumn cicadas are those kinds of expendable cursed insects that can only be used once. However, even if it's gone, I can still refine another one. If I could refine it in my previous life, why can't I do it in this life? Unfortunately, afterwards, a surge of ambition and pride welled up in Fang Yuan's heart again. Being able to be reborn is completely acceptable for the loss of the spring and autumn cicadas. Moreover, he also possesses treasures and is not empty-handed. This treasure is his 500 years of memory and experience. In his memory, there are many treasures that have yet to be uncovered. There are significant events that allow him to easily grasp the threads of history. There are countless figures. Some are predecessors in seclusion, some are exceptionally talented individuals, and some haven't even been born yet. There also exist the heavy experiences of hard cultivation over the past 500 years and rich combat experience. With these, there is no doubt that one has grasped the overall situation and the initiative. As long as the operation is good, traversing the world and recreating the style of the great troll heroes is completely not a problem, and one can even go further and reach a higher realm. So how should we proceed? Fang Yuan was very rational, quickly tidying up his emotions, and began to ponder in the face of the night rain outside the window. Thinking about it this way, it feels like a tangled mess. After thinking for a moment, his brows furrowed deeper and deeper. 500 years is indeed a long time. Not to mention those memories that have become vague and are hard to recall. Even the treasures and opportunities remembered, although many, are mostly either separated by a distance of hundreds of thousands of miles, or can only be accessed at specific times. The most critical thing is still cultivation. I have not yet opened the Yuan Sea and have not embarked on the path of a Gu master. I am essentially an ordinary person. I must cultivate quickly, increase my cultivation level, seize the opportunity before history, and gain as many benefits as possible. Moreover, many hidden treasures cannot be digested even if obtained due to insufficient cultivation. Instead, they become a hot potato, a crime of possessing something valuable. The first problem facing Fang Yuan is his cultivation. I must quickly improve my cultivation. If I take my time like in my previous life, the flowers will have wilted. To quickly improve my cultivation, I must rely on the resources of my family. Given my current situation, I simply do not have the ability to navigate through the perilous mountains. Even an ordinary wild boar could take my life. If I can reach the level of a third transformation Gu master, I will have the basic ability to protect myself and traverse this world. From the perspective of a master of the demonic path forged over 500 years, this Qingmao mountain is truly too small, and the Guyuem mountain stronghold feels more like a cage. However, while the cage confines freedom, a sturdy cell often represents a certain kind of safety. For a short time, let's just struggle with fists and kicks in this cage. As long as I advance to the third transformation of a Gu master, I can leave this remote and impoverished place. But fortunately, tomorrow is the enlightenment ceremony, and shortly after that, I can officially begin my training as a Gu master. As soon as he thought of the enlightenment ceremony, the long-buried memories in Fang Yuan's heart surfaced. Qualifications, huh? Looking out the window, he couldn't help but sneer 3 times. At that moment, the door was gently pushed open and a young boy walked in. "Brother, why are you standing by the window in the rain?" This boy is slender, slightly shorter than Fang Yuan, and his appearance is very similar to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan turned to look at the young man, a complex expression flashing across his face. "It's you, my twin brother." He raised his eyebrows slightly, his expression returning to its usual indifference. Fang Zheng lowered his head and looked at his toes, which was his signature move. "I saw that your window was not closed, so I wanted to quietly come in and close it. Tomorrow is the enlightenment ceremony, and brother, you're still not resting so late. If uncle and aunt find out, they might worry." It is not surprising that he is indifferent to Fang Yuan, as his brother has always been like this since childhood. Sometimes he thinks, maybe a genius is just such an extraordinary person. Although he has a very similar appearance to his brother, he feels as ordinary as an ant. At the same time born from the same womb, why is heaven so unfair? It bestowed my brother with diamond-like talent, while I am as ordinary as a pebble. Everyone around me, when mentioning themselves, will say, "This is Fang Yuan's younger brother." Uncle and aunt often teach me to learn from your brother. Even sometimes when I look in the mirror and see my own face, I feel a bit disgusted. These thoughts have been buried deep in my heart for many years, accumulating over time. Like a huge stone pressing on my chest, my head has been hanging lower and lower over the years, and I have become increasingly silent. Worried. Thinking of his uncle and aunt, Fang Yuan let out a silent sneer in his heart. He remembers very clearly that his parents in this body fell due to a family mission. At the age of 3, he became an orphan along with his younger brother. Uncle and aunt openly occupied the inheritance of their parents under the guise of guardianship and treated themselves and their younger brother harshly. Originally, as a time traveler, he planned to keep a low profile. However, the hardships of life forced Fang Yuan to choose to reveal his extraordinary talents. The so-called genius is actually just the intellect of a mature soul, along with a few Tang poems and song lyrics that have been celebrated for centuries. It was just a small test of skills, yet it astonished everyone and received widespread attention. Under external pressure, the young Fang Yuan had no choice but to adopt a cold expression to disguise and protect himself, reducing the possibility of being exposed. Over time, indifference has instead become my habitual expression. In this way, my uncle and aunt no longer had to be harsh on themselves and my brother. As we grew older, our future looked brighter, and our treatment improved accordingly. However, this is not love, but an investment. This younger brother is ridiculous, yet he fails to see the truth. Not only is he deceived by his uncle and aunt, but he also harbors resentment towards himself. Don't be fooled by his current obedient and honest demeanor. After being tested and found to have top-tier qualifications, he was heavily nurtured by the family, and the hidden hatred and jealousy were unleashed, leading him to target, make things difficult for, and suppress his own elder brother. As for my own qualifications, the highest is just a third rate. Fate always loves to play tricks. 1 child, 2 births. The older brother has only a C-level talent, yet enjoys the title of genius for over a decade. The younger brother remains unknown, but possesses A-level talent. The result of enlightenment left the clan in shock. It also completely reversed the situation and treatment of the 2 brothers. The younger brother is like a sleeping dragon ascending to the sky, while the older brother is like a phoenix chick landing on the ground. After that, there were repeated difficulties from my younger brother, the cold eyes of my uncle and aunt, and the disdain of the clan. You hate it? Fang Yuan hated in his previous life, hated his insufficient talent, hated his family's ruthlessness, hated the unfairness of fate. But now, with 500 years of life experience, he re-examines this journey, yet his heart is calm and unperturbed, without a trace of hatred. What is there to be angry about? If he thinks from their perspective, he can also understand his brother, his uncle and aunt, as well as the righteous strong enemies who will besiege him 500 years later. The law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, is the essence of this world. Moreover, everyone has their own ambitions, and they all compete for that thread of heavenly secrets. What is there to not understand about the mutual suppression and killing among each other? 500 years of experience have long made him see through all of this, and in his heart, there is only the path to immortality. If someone stands in the way of his pursuit, no matter who it is, it will only be a matter of life and death. The ambition in my heart is too great. Stepping onto this path means being destined to have enemies all over the world, to walk alone, and to face numerous hardships. This is the realization distilled from 500 years of life. Revenge is not what I intend, and the path of evil has never known the word compromise. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan couldn't help but chuckle. He turned back to his brother, glanced at him lightly, and said, "You may leave now." Fang Zhang couldn't help but feel a shiver in his heart, sensing his brother's gaze was as sharp as an ice blade, seemingly piercing through to the deepest part of his soul. Under such gazes, he was like being naked in the snow, with no secrets to speak of. "See you tomorrow, brother." At that moment, she didn't dare to say more, and Fang Zhang slowly closed the door, retreating quietly. Section 3. Please play with the egg. Bang, 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 bang. The patrolling bell ringer struck the rhythmic clapper. The sound entered the high, stilted building. Fang Yuan opened his dry eyelids and thought to himself, "It's the 5th watch of the night. Last night, I lay in bed thinking for a long time, planning and arranging a lot of things, and in the end, I only slept for a little over an hour. This body has not yet begun to cultivate, and its energy is not strong. So waves of fatigue and exhaustion still envelop the body and mind. However, more than 500 years of experience have long forged Fang Yuan's steel-like deep determination. This little drowsiness is simply nothing at all. Immediately pushed aside the thin silk quilt on his body and got up cleanly and neatly. Opening the window, the spring rain has stopped. The fresh humidity mixed with the scents of soil, trees, and wildflowers suddenly rushed over. Fang Yuan immediately felt his mind clear, and the drowsiness was completely driven away. At tea this time. The sun has not yet risen, and the sky is a deep blue, both dark and bright. Looking around, the high stilted buildings made of green bamboo and trees contrast with the mountains, creating a scene of tranquil greenery. The stilted building has at least 2 floors and is a unique structure of mountain dwellings. Because the mountain is rugged and uneven, the first floor consists of large wooden piles, while the second floor is where people live. Fang Yuan and his brother Fang Zheng live on the second floor. Young Master Fang Yuan, you are awake. I will come upstairs right away to assist you with your washing up. At that moment, a girl's voice came from downstairs. Fang Yuan looked down and saw his personal maid, Xin Shui. She can only be considered average in appearance, but she is well dressed, wearing a green top, long sleeves and pants, with embroidered shoes on her feet, and a pearl hairpin in her black hair, exuding youthful vitality all over. She happily glanced at Fang Yuan, carrying a basin of water, and quickly went upstairs. The water is warm water that has been prepared for washing the face. For rinsing the mouth, use willow twigs dipped in snow salt, which can clean the teeth and whiten them. Xin Shui gently attended to him, wearing a smile on her face, her eyes filled with spring. Then she helped Fang Yuan put on his clothes and fasten them, occasionally rubbing her full chest against Fang Yuan's arm or back during the process. Fang Yuan had a blank expression, his heart is calm as still water. This maid is not only the eyes and ears of my uncle and aunt, but also vain and cold-hearted. In the previous life, I was deceived by her, and after the enlightenment ceremony, when my status plummeted, she immediately turned against me and often gave me disdainful looks. When Fang Zheng arrived, he saw Xin Shui smoothing out the wrinkles on Fang Yuan's chest clothing, and a trace of envy and jealousy flashed in his eyes. Over the years living with my brother and being taken care of by Fang Yuan, he also has a servant attending to him. However, it is not a young maid like Xin Shui, but a plump old woman. If one day, Xin Shui could serve me like this, what would it feel like? Fang Zheng thought a bit, but also dared not think too much. It is well known in the household that my uncle and aunt favor Fang Yuan. Originally, he had no servants to attend to him. It was Fang Yuan who took the initiative to request them for Fang Zheng. Although there is a distinction in identity between master and servant, Fang Zheng does not dare to underestimate Xin Shui on ordinary days. This is because Xin Shui's mother, who is also the housekeeper of the entire residence, is Shun Mama, who is close to his aunt and enjoys her trust, holding considerable power. All right, no need to tidy up. Fang Yuan impatiently brushed away Xin Shui's soft little hand. His clothes were already neat, and Xin Shui was more about seduction. For her, the possibility of a bright future and top qualifications is very high. If she can become Fang Yuan's concubine, she can transform from a slave to a master, which can be said to be a leap to success. In the previous life, Fang Yuan was deceived and even fell in love with this maid. After being reborn, however, he sees through everything and his heart is as cold as frost. Step back. Fang Yuan didn't even look at Xin Shui, adjusting his cuffs. Xin Suiwei pouted slightly, feeling a bit strange and wronged by Fang Yuan's lack of romantic understanding today. She wanted to say something cute, but was intimidated by Fang Yuan's vague and inexplicable aura. After opening her mouth several times, she finally said yes and obediently stepped back. Are you ready? Fang Yuan looked at Fang Zheng. The younger brother stood dazed at the door, looking down at his toes, and softly made a sound of acknowledgement. He actually woke up at 4 o'clock, too nervous to sleep, secretly got out of bed early and was already prepared. with dark circles under his eyes. Fang Yuan nodded. He was not aware of his brother's thoughts in his previous life, but how could he not understand them in this life? But at this moment, it is meaningless to point it out, and I dan dan de fun fuja, then let's go. So the two brothers walked out of their home, and along the way, they encountered many peers, in groups of 2 or 3, clearly heading to the same destination. You see, those are the Fang brothers. A cautious whisper came from beside Xiao Er. The one walking in front is Fang Yuan, the one who writes poetry. Someone emphasized. It turns out it's him, with a blank expression and an air of indifference, just as the rumors said, so arrogant. Someone spoke with a sour tone, filled with jealousy and envy. Humph, if you could be like him, you could act like this too, someone coldly replied, hiding a sense of dissatisfaction. Fang Zheng listened expressionlessly. He had long been accustomed to such discussions. He lowered his head and silently followed behind his brother. At this time, the morning light has already brightened the horizon, and Fang Yuan's shadow is cast on his face. The morning sun is gradually rising, but Fang Zheng suddenly feels that he is walking towards darkness. This darkness comes from his brother, and perhaps for this whole life, he will never be able to escape the huge shadow cast by his brother. He felt a wave of oppression in his chest, even struggling to breathe. This damn feeling made him even think of the word suffocation. Humph, such discussions are indeed like a tree standing out in the forest. It will surely be blown by the wind. Listening to the discussions around him, Fang Yuan sneered in his heart. No wonder that after measuring his C-level qualifications, he was surrounded by enemies and faced harsh treatment, disdain, and coldness for a long time. Behind him, he could hear his younger brother Fang Zheng's increasingly heavy breathing. What was not noticed in the previous life is now clearly observed in this life. This is the keen insight brought by 500 years of life experience. He suddenly thought of his uncle and aunt, who really had some means. They arranged for Shun Shui to monitor him closely and provided an old nanny for his younger brother. In fact, there were other differences in treatment regarding daily life details. This is all intentional, meant to provoke the discontent in my brother's heart and to sow discord in our brotherly relationship. People are not troubled by scarcity, but by inequality. In the previous life, I experienced too little, and my younger brother was too foolish and naive, successfully instigated by my uncle and aunt. Since the rebirth, it seems that the grand ceremony is about to begin, and the situation appears to be difficult to change. But with Fang Yuan's means and wisdom as a master of the demonic path, it is not impossible to alter. This younger brother can completely suppress and subdue, and a little girl like Shun Shui can be brought in even earlier. There are also uncles and aunts. In the clan leader's family, there are at least hundreds of ways to deal with them. But I really don't want to do this. Fang Yuan sighed leisurely in his heart. Even if it's a biological brother, so what? There's no kinship to speak of. He's just a stranger, so letting go is just letting go. Even if Shin Shui is beautiful, so what? Without love and loyalty, she is just a income asterisk asterisk. She is not worthy of it. Even if they are uncles and aunts, or the head of the clan, they are all just passers-by in life. Why bother expending so much effort and energy to deal with these bystanders? As long as you don't hinder my journey, you can play with your own eggs. I wouldn't even bother to step on them. Section 4. Guyu Fang Yuan. The sun rises, and the glow of the clouds is brilliant. The mountain mist is not very thick and is easily pierced by the sword-like sunlight. More than 115-year-old teenagers are gathered in front of the family head's pavilion. The main hall is located in the center of the village, standing 5 stories high, with flying eaves and upturned corners, heavily guarded. In front of the hall is a square, and inside the hall, there are tablets honoring the ancestors of the ancient moon. Each generation of clan leaders also lives here, and during major ceremonies or urgent matters, the elders of the family are summoned here to discuss and deliberate. This is the power center of the entire village. Very good, everyone arrived on time. Today is the enlightenment ceremony, a significant turning point in your lives. No more small talk, follow me. The one in charge of this trip is the elder of the academy. He has white hair and beard, and energetically leads the young people into the main hall. However, instead of going upstairs, he walked down through the entrance of the lobby on the first floor. Following the stone steps that have been built, we enter the underground cave. The boys exclaimed in amazement. The underground cave was magnificent, with stalactites emitting a dazzling array of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. This brilliance reflected on the boys' faces, vibrant like a neon light. Fang Yuan mixed in the center of the crowd, quietly observing everything, secretly pondering. Hundreds of years ago, the Guyu clan migrated from the central plains to the southern wilderness, settling here in Qingmao Mountain. They were attracted by a spiritual spring in the underground caves. This spiritual spring produces a large amount of elemental stones, which can be said to be the foundation of the Guyu stronghold. After walking for hundreds of steps, it became increasingly dark, and I could faintly hear the sound of water. Turning the corner, a subterranean river more than 3 zhang wide appeared before everyone. The colorful light of the stalactites in this place has completely disappeared. But in the darkness, the river water emits a faint Yolan light, as if it were the Milky Way in the night sky. The river water flows from the dark depths of the cave, crystal clear, so clear that one can see the fish swimming inside, the water plants, and the sand and stones at the bottom of the river. On the opposite bank of the river, there is a sea of flowers. This is the moon orchid that the ancient Yu clan intentionally cultivated, with petals resembling a crescent moon, presenting a delicate and elegant blue-pink color. The flower stem is like jade, and the flower center shines, as if it is the warm luster refracted from pearls under the light. At first glance, against the dark background, the riverside flower sea looks like a vast blue-green carpet, dotted with countless pearls. The moon orchid is a food source for many goo worms. This sea of flowers can be said to be the largest cultivation base of the family. Fang Yuan was well aware of this. Beautiful. Really beautiful. The boys have opened their eyes, each with shining eyes, both excited and nervous. All right, now listen to me sign up. Those who are called will cross this river and go to the other side. Walk as far as you can, of course, the farther the better. Did everyone hear that clearly? The elder said at that moment. Understood. The boys responded one after another. In fact, before coming, they had all heard from their families or seniors that the farther they went, the better their aptitude, and the greater their future achievements would be. Guyu Qinbo. The family elder pointed out the first person on the list. The river is wide but not deep, only reaching the boy's knees. Chen Bo had a serious expression as he stepped onto the riverside flower sea. Suddenly, he felt an invisible pressure, as if there were an unseen wall in front of him, blocking his way forward. At a time when progress was difficult, a cluster of light suddenly emerged from the sea of flowers at my feet. The light was sparse and appeared pure white. The brilliance gathered towards Qinbo and was infused into his body. Qinbo suddenly felt the pressure decrease dramatically. That invisible wall suddenly became soft. He gritted his teeth and forced his way forward, squeezing in with all his might. After taking 3 steps, the pressure ahead increased again, just like before, as if it were a wall, not allowing him to advance even a fraction. Seeing this scene, the family elder sighed and recorded on the spot, saying, Guyu Qinbo, 3 steps, no Gu master qualification. Next, Guyu Zhao Xie. Chen Bo's face suddenly turned pale, gritting his teeth. He crossed the river and returned to the original place. Without qualifications, he could only live as a mortal in the future, and in the family, he could only occupy the lowest position. His body swayed as if about to fall. The blow was too great. It was equivalent to strangling a lifetime of hope. Many people cast sympathetic glances at him, while more people focused on the second boy who reached the other shore. Unfortunately, this young man can only take 4 steps forward, and he also lacks talent. Not everyone has the aptitude for cultivation. Generally speaking, if 5 out of 10 people can cultivate, that is already quite good. In the ancient Moon family, this ratio is even higher, reaching 6 people. This is because the ancestor of the ancient Moon, who is the first-generation clan leader, is a well-known legendary powerhouse. Due to his cultivation, there are hidden genes carrying power in his bloodline. The members of the ancient Moon clan generally have higher qualifications because they share his bloodline. The continuous occurrence of two unqualified situations made the other elders who were secretly paying attention look displeased. Even the composed leader of the Guyu clan frowned slightly. At that moment, the elder of the academy shouted out the third name, Guyu Mo Bei. Here. A horse-faced boy dressed in a linen robe shouted lightly and stepped forward from the crowd. He is tall and much sturdier than his peers, exuding a hint of a fierce aura. A few steps crossed the river and stepped onto the opposite bank. 10 steps, 20 steps, 30 steps. Gradually a faint light entered his body, walked all the way to 36 steps, and finally couldn't walk anymore. The boys on the other side watched in astonishment, and the old man from the school shouted with joy, "Good, Guyu Mo Bei, with your qualifications, come here and let me see your Yuan Hai." Guyu Mo Bei returned to the old man at the school, who reached out his hand, placed it on the boy's shoulder, closed his eyes, and focused for a moment before withdrawing his hand, nodding slightly and recording on paper. Guyu Mo Bei, Yuan Hai 66%, advanced to Class B for further study. This qualification is divided into 4 levels, A, B, C, and D. A youth with third-class qualifications can be trained for 3 years to be promoted to a first-level senior Gu master, becoming the cornerstone of the family. A youth with a third-class qualification, after 2 years of training, can mostly become a second-tier Gu master, becoming a backbone of the family. A person with second-class qualifications needs to be nurtured. Often, they are to be trained as future family elders, and with 6 or 7 years of effort, they can become a third-level Gu master. As for the first-class qualification, even if one appears, it is a blessing for the entire family. Careful attention and resource allocation are needed, and in about 10 years, one can become a fourth-turn Gu master, at which point they will be able to compete for the position of clan leader. In other words, as long as the ancient moon in the northern desert grows up, it will become the family elder of the ancient Moon clan in the future. No wonder the elder of the academy laughed heartily, while the elders from various families who were secretly paying attention all breathed a sigh of relief, and then cast envious glances at one of the family elders. This old man also has a horse face. He is the grandfather of Guyu Mo Bei, Guyu Mo Chen. A smile has already spread across his face, and he provocatively glanced at his old rival. "How about it? My grandson is not bad, right, Guyu Qilian?" The family elder, Guyu Qilian, had a head of red hair. At this moment, he snorted coldly and did not respond. His expression was very gloomy and unpleasant. Half an hour later, half of the young boys had stepped into the sea of flowers, with quite a few showing C and D level qualifications, while those with no qualifications at all accounted for almost half. Sigh, the bloodline is becoming thinner and thinner, and over the years, the family has not produced many fourth transition strong ones to strengthen the bloodline. The fourth-generation clan leader was the only fifth transition strong one, but ended up perishing together with the flower wine traveler, leaving no bloodline descendants. The qualifications of the younger generation of the ancient Moon clan are getting weaker and weaker. The clan leader sighed deeply. At that moment, the old man of the academy shouted, "Guyu Qi Cheng." Hearing this name, the elders all looked towards Guyu Qilian, who is the grandson of Guyu Qilian. Guyu Chikage is short in stature, has a face full of pimples, clenches his fists, and is sweating profusely, looking particularly nervous. He stepped onto the opposite shore, and the light spots continuously entered his body. He walked for 36 steps before stopping. "Another second class," the schoolmaster shouted. The boys became restless, casting envious glances at Guyu Qicheng. "Ha ha ha, 36 steps, 36 steps." Guyu Qilian shouted, glaring at Guyu Mo Chen in a show of force. This time it was Guyu Mo Chen's turn to have a pale face. "Guyu Qijing, huh?" In the crowd, Fang Yuan thoughtfully stroked his chin. In my memory, he was severely punished by the clan for cheating during the enlightenment ceremony. In fact, his qualifications were only of the third class, but his grandfather, Guyu Qilian, forged them for him, creating the illusion of second-class qualifications. In fact, if he wanted to cheat, Fang Yuan had dozens of plans in mind, some of which were even more perfect than Guyu Qicheng's. If he were to show B-grade or A-grade qualifications, he would definitely receive strong support from the family. However, when it comes to it, Fang Yuan's time of rebirth is too short, and given his situation, it is difficult for him to prepare cheating methods. Even if cheating is successful, the speed of cultivation in the future cannot be hidden and will still be revealed. However, this Guyu Qicheng is different. His grandfather is Guyu Qilian, one of the two most powerful elders in the family, who can shield him. Guyu Qilian has always been in opposition to Guyu Imo Qin, as these two families are the largest factions in the clan. In order to suppress his opponent, he needs his grandson to have outstanding qualifications. It is also because he has been providing cover that Guyu Qicheng has been able to remain hidden for a time. If it weren't for that accident in his memory, it wouldn't have been exposed. Fang Yuan's eyes sparkled with brilliance as he pondered how to use this to seize the greatest benefit. Although exposing it on the spot may earn a small reward from the family, it would offend the powerful Guyu Qilian, which is absolutely unacceptable. In a short period of time, one cannot engage in extortion. Because the strength is too low, it will instead lead to self-destruction. Guyu Fang Yuan. Section 5. The Three Curses of the Ancestor of Humanity, Hope for Enlightenment. In an instant, the surroundings fell silent, and countless gazes were directed towards me. It's getting more and more exciting. Fang Yuan smiled inwardly as he crossed the river and stepped onto the opposite bank under the watchful eyes of everyone. Suddenly, he felt a layer of pressure. The pressure comes from the spiritual spring deep within the sea of flowers. The spiritual spring generates vital energy, and because the vital energy is too rich and abundant, it leads to pressure. But soon, a burst of light points rose from the flower bushes at Fang Yuan's feet. The light spots swayed, enveloping Fang Yuan's entire body, and finally all entered into his body. This is the Hope Gu. Fang Yuan murmured to himself. Although the person in charge did not explain, he knew very well. Each of these light spots is a curse. The name of the poison is hope. There is an ancient legend about the Hope Gu. Legend has it that when this world was just formed, it was a wild and desolate place, with beasts roaming freely, and the first human appeared, named the ancestor of humanity. He lived on raw meat and blood, and life was extremely difficult. Especially, there is a group of beasts called Dilemma, who particularly enjoy the taste of the human ancestor and want to eat him. The ancestor of humanity did not have a body as hard as stone, nor the sharp teeth and claws of wild beasts. How could he fight against this group of beasts called adversity? His food sources were very unstable, constantly hiding, and he was at the low end of the natural food chain, almost unable to survive. At this time, Three Gu came to seek out the ancestor of humanity and said, "As long as you use your life to nourish us, we will help you through this difficult time." The ancestor of humanity had no way out and had no choice but to agree to these three-headed Gu. He first used his own youthful years to nourish the largest of the three Gu, which brought him power. Relying on strength, the life of the ancestor began to improve. He started to have a stable food source and the power to protect himself. He was brave and fought fiercely, overcoming many difficulties. But soon he faced hardships. In the end, he realized that strength is not omnipotent. It also needs recovery and rest, and cannot be squandered at will. Moreover, for the entire herd in distress, his strength alone is truly too small. The ancestor of humanity, in deep pain and reflection, decided to use his most vigorous middle age to nourish the most beautiful of the three Gu. Thus, the second Gu brought him wisdom. The ancestor of humanity gained wisdom, learned to think and reflect, and began to accumulate experience. He discovered that many times using wisdom was more effective than using strength. With wisdom and strength, he once conquered many previously unconquerable goals, defeating more adversities. He consumed the flesh of adversities and drank the blood of adversities, thus surviving tenaciously. But good times didn't last long. The ancestor grew older and older. This is because he devoted both his youth and middle age to the power worm and the wisdom worm. As people age, their muscles atrophy, and their minds don't work as quickly. Human, what else can you bring us? You have nothing left to offer us. After realizing this, the power Gu and wisdom Gu left mercilessly. The ancestor of humanity lost strength and wisdom, and was discovered in a predicament, surrounded by a pack of beasts. He is aged, can no longer run, his teeth have all fallen out, and he can no longer chew wild fruits and vegetables. He collapsed weakly to the ground, surrounded by a dense array of difficulties, his heart filled with despair. At that moment, the third goose said to him, "Human, worship me, and I can help you out of your predicament." The ancestor said with tears, "Goo, what else do I have? Look, the power goo and the wisdom goo have both abandoned me, and all I have left is old age. Compared to youth and middle age, old age may be insignificant, but if I dedicate my old age to you, my life will end immediately. Although I am surrounded by difficulties now, I will not die in a moment. I still want to live a little longer, even if it's just for a second. So you should go. I can no longer dedicate myself to you." The poison said, "Among the three poisons, my demands are the least. Human, you only need to give your heart to me, and that's enough. Then I will entrust my heart to you." The ancestor said, "But goo, what can you bring me? In this desperate situation, even if the power goo and wisdom goo return to me, it won't change anything. Compared to the power worm, this worm's body is the weakest, just a small point of light. Compared to the wisdom worm, this worm is the dimmest, only able to emit a faint white light, not at all magnificent or splendid. But when a person gives their heart to this goo, it suddenly bursts forth with infinite light, and in this light, the predicaments cry out in fear. This is the hope goo. Retreat quickly. Our predicaments fear hope the most." The herd of beasts immediately retreated in panic. The ancestor was dumbfounded, and from that moment on, he knew, when facing difficulties, just entrust your heart to hope. At this moment, the hope goo has converged into a beam of light and has already entered Fang Yuan's body. Due to external pressure, they quickly gathered at Fang Yuan's abdomen, forming a mass spontaneously 3 inches below the navel. Fang Yuan immediately felt a slight reduction in pressure. He stepped forward and continued on. With every step he takes, streams of hopeful spirits will soar out from the sea of flowers, entering his body and joining the light. The light group is getting bigger and brighter, but the person in charge on the other side frowned. The number of this hope goo seems a bit small. Many elders who had been secretly watching Fang Yuan felt a sinking sensation in their hearts upon seeing this scene. The patriarch also frowned. This is absolutely not the demeanor that a top-tier talent should have. Fang Yuan continued to move forward under pressure. Below 10 steps, there is no qualification for cultivation. Between 10 and 20 steps, it is the Ding level qualification. Between 20 and 30 steps, it is the Bing level qualification. Between 30 and 40 steps, it is the E level qualification. Between 40 and 50 steps, it is the Jia level qualification. So far, I have walked 23 steps. 24, 25, 26, 27. Fang Yuan silently counted in his heart, and when he reached the 27th step, it was as if he heard a loud bang, and the light mass between his 2 kidneys and his abdomen accumulated to the limit, suddenly exploding violently. This explosion only occurred within Fang Yuan's body, and outsiders could not perceive it at all. Only Fang Yuan felt an earth-shattering mystery in that instant. In an instant, all the hair on his body stood on end, his pores tightened, and his mind felt like a bowstring that had been suddenly pulled taut. Suddenly, the mind went blank, the whole body felt soft, as if it had fallen into the clouds. The heartstrings relaxed, the hair lay flat, and all the pores in the body opened up. Suddenly, a layer of fine sweat broke out all over my body. This process, although it sounds long, is actually very brief. It comes quickly and goes away just as suddenly. Fang Yuan was momentarily stunned, but quickly regained his composure. He secretly focused and explored within his body, and found a hole that appeared in the center of his 2 kidneys, below the navel and the abdomen. The breakthrough was successful. This is the hope for immortality. Section 6. The road ahead will be wonderful. The empty cavity is extraordinarily mysterious. Although it is housed within Fang Yuan's body, it does not occupy the same space as the internal organs. You could say it is infinitely large, and you could also say it is infinitely small. Some call it the Purple Mansion, some call it the Flower Pool. However, More people refer to it as the primordial sea's empty aperture. The entire cavity is spherical, and a layer of white light flows on the surface of the cavity, which is a layer of light film. It is the layer of light that condensed after the previous hope bug exploded. It is precisely because of this layer of light film that the hollow space is supported and will not collapse in the empty cavity. It is naturally the primordial sea. The sea was as smooth as a mirror, Chengshan, a deep blue color, yet it was extremely thick, with a copper sheen. This is a bronze true essence condensation that only a master of transformation can have, commonly known as the bronze sea. The sea surface is less than half the height of the air vent, only 44%. This is also a limitation of the third-class qualification. Every drop of seawater is the essence, representing the condensation of Fang Yuan's spirit, symbolizing the life potential he has accumulated over the past 15 years. The goo master uses this true essence to stimulate the goo worms, which means that from this moment on, Fang Yuan officially steps into the ranks of a first-turn goo master. The empty cavity has opened, and there is no longer hope for the goo to flow into Fang Yuan's body. Fang Yuan focused his mind and felt that the pressure ahead was as solid as a wall, preventing him from advancing any further. Just like in the previous life. He smiled lightly at this result. "Can't we walk anymore?" The old man from the school shouted across the river with a glimmer of hope. Fang Yuan turned around and walked back, responding to him with his actions. Now, even those young boys have reacted. Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound, and the crowd erupted. What? Fang Yuan walked 27 steps? Turns out he only has a C-level qualification? It's hard to believe that he's such a genius, yet he's only a C grade? A huge uproar arose among the crowd. "Brother!" In the crowd, Guyu raised his head, looking in shock at Fang Yuan, who had just returned from crossing the river. He couldn't believe the scene before him. His brother was actually just a C rank. He has always believed that his brother would be a first-class talent. No, it's not just him. Many people in the clan, including my uncle and aunt, think so too. But now, the result is actually like this. Damn it, it's only a C rank. The leader of the Guyu clan clenched his fists and sighed deeply, his disappointment evident. The elders who were secretly paying attention had some frowning. Some were discussing with their heads down, and some were sighing to the sky. Could there be an error in the test? How is that possible? This method is incredibly accurate, and besides, we've been keeping a close watch, so cheating is difficult. But then, how can we explain his previous performance and talent? The higher the innate talent of a young person, the more they will exhibit characteristics that surpass ordinary people. For example, intelligence, comprehension, memory, strength, agility, and so on. However, conversely, these characteristics do not necessarily indicate that the talent is high. Everything must be based on the test results. Alas, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. The Guyu clan is getting worse with each generation. The icy river water soaked the socks, cold enough to be a bit piercing. Fang Yuan continued to walk with a blank expression, getting closer and closer. He could clearly see the heavy expression on the old man of the school and could keenly sense the gazes of hundreds of young people directed at him. This gaze contains astonishment, shock, sarcasm, schadenfreude, bewilderment, and indifference. The identical situation made Fang Yuan involuntarily think of his past life. At that time, I felt like the sky had collapsed. I slipped and fell while crossing the river, getting soaked all over, feeling lost and disheartened. Yet, no one came to help me. These expressions and gazes of disappointment and indifference pierce my heart like a sharp knife. My thoughts are in disarray, and there is a faint pain in my chest. It's like falling from the clouds to the ground. The higher you stand, the harder you fall. However, in this life, returning to such a scene, Fang Yuan's heart was incredibly calm. He thought of the legend that when difficulties arise, one must give their heart to hope. Now this hope lies within oneself. Although this hope is not great, it is already better than those who have no qualifications for cultivation. If others are disappointed because of this, then let them be disappointed. What can be done? What does others' disappointment have to do with me? What matters is that I have hope in my heart. A 500-year life has taught him a truth. The brilliance of a person's life lies in the process of pursuing their dreams. There is no need to demand that others do not feel disappointed or to seek their approval. Walk your own path, let others be disappointed and dislike it.
Alas!
The elder of the academy sighed deeply and shouted, "Next, Guyu Fangzheng." But no one answered. "Guyu Fangzheng," the elder shouted, his voice buzzing and echoing in the cave. "Ah, I'm here. I'm here." Fang Zheng broke free from his shocked state and hurriedly ran out, but unfortunately stumbled and fell, landing with a splash as he rolled into the river. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter. The Fang brothers are nothing more than this. The leader of the Guyu clan snorted coldly, feeling a sense of annoyance towards Guyu Fangzheng as well. This is really embarrassing. Fang struggled in the river, splashing around a few times, but the riverbed was too slippery, and he couldn't get up at all. His efforts only made him seem more clumsy. Hearing bursts of laughter around him made him even more flustered. But just at that moment, he suddenly felt a strong force pulling him, his head finally breaking free from the water's surface, and his body regained its balance. With a messy wipe of his face, he focused his eyes again and saw his brother Fang Yuan lifting him up by his collar. "Brother?" He opened his mouth to speak, but what followed was the result of choking on water, which then triggered a violent coughing fit. "Ha, the difficult brothers of the Fang family." Someone on the shore laughed out loud. The laughter grew louder, and the old man of the school did not step forward to stop it. He frowned deeply, filled with disappointment. Fang Zheng was at a loss when he heard his brother's voice beside him. "Go ahead, the road ahead will be wonderful." Fang Zheng couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. At this moment, Fang Yuan had his back to the crowd, so the people on the shore couldn't see clearly. However, Fang Zheng could clearly sense Fang Yuan's calmness. Even when he spoke, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing a hint of a deep, playful smile. "Clearly just a third-class qualification. Why is my brother still so calm?" Unavoidably, Fang Zheng's heart was filled with doubt. Fang Yuan said no more, patted Fang Zheng on the back, and turned to leave. Fang Zheng looked dazed as he walked towards the sea of flowers. "I didn't expect my brother to be so calm. If it were me, I would probably..." He lowered his head and walked forward unconsciously. Yet he didn't realize he was putting on a miraculous performance. By the time he woke up in shock, he was already standing deep in the sea of flowers, a distance that no one had reached before, 43 steps. "Oh my, first-class qualification!" The head of the academy shouted in a loss of composure. "First class? Is it really first class?" After 3 years, the Guyu clan has finally produced a genius with A-grade qualifications. The elders who were secretly watching also shouted, losing their composure. "Well, the Fang family originally branched out from our Qi family, and this Guyu Fangzheng was raised by my Qi family," Guyu Qilian immediately announced. "How is that possible? What virtue or ability do you, the old ghost of Qilian, have to mislead the younger generation? This child is better off being raised by me, Guyu Imo-chan." Guyu Imo-chan immediately roared as if he had been electrocuted. Nobody should argue anymore. No matter who cultivates this child, it won't be as good as the clan leader cultivating them personally. Anyone who has objections is opposing me, Guyu Ebwa. The clan leader Guyu's eyes were bloodshot, sweeping away the previous disappointment and despair, and he had gone completely mad. Section 7. The Gu Master has 9 transformations. The flower wine leaves a hidden treasure soon. A week passed. Humans are the spirits of all things, and Gu is the essence of heaven and earth. In this world, there exist thousands and thousands of Gu, countless in number. They live around us, in the soil, in the grass, and even inside wild beasts. In the process of human reproduction and survival, the sages gradually discovered the mysteries of Gu worms. Those who have opened their empty orifices and used their own true essence to nourish, refine, and control these Gu to achieve various purposes are collectively referred to as Gu Masters. And you all successfully opened the empty orifice and condensed the true essence C during the Enlightenment ceremony 7 days ago. And now you are all first-level Gu Masters. In the school within the village, the elder of the school was speaking eloquently. In front of him, there were 57 young people sitting upright, each listening attentively. The magic and power of the Gu Master have long penetrated the hearts of the young boys. Therefore, everything the elder of the family narrates deeply attracts them. At this moment, a young boy raised his hand, and after receiving permission from the elder, he stood up to ask, "Elder, I have known since I was very young that there are first and second transformations for Gu Masters. Could you explain this to us in detail?" Master Gu Yuan nodded and gestured for the young man to sit down. There are a total of 9 major realms for Gu Masters, from the lowest to the highest, which are the first turn, second turn, third turn, up to the 9th turn. Each major realm is further divided into 4 minor realms: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and peak. You have just become Gu Masters, all at the beginner level of the first turn. If you work hard on your cultivation in the future, your skills will naturally improve, and promotion to the second or third transfer will also be possible. Of course, the higher the aptitude, the greater the possibility of promotion. With D-grade aptitude, the Yuan C occupies 2 to 3 tenths of the empty aperture, often reaching a maximum of the first or second transformation. With C-grade aptitude, the Yuan C occupies 4 to 5 tenths of the empty aperture, usually stopping at the second transformation, with only a small portion lucky enough to break through to the initial stage of the third transformation. With B-grade aptitude, the Yuan C occupies 6 to 7 tenths of the entire empty aperture, able to reach the third transformation, or even the fourth transformation. With A-grade aptitude, the Yuan C is abundant, occupying the entire empty aperture. Such individuals naturally have the highest talent, are most suitable for Gu Master cultivation, and can reach the 5th transformation. As for the 6 transformation Gu Masters, each one is a legend, but I'm not very clear on the specifics. Our Gu Yu clan has never had a 6 transformation Gu Master, but we have had 5 transformation and 4 transformation Gu Masters. The boys perked up their ears and listened with bright, shining eyes. Many people couldn't help but look at the dignified Gu Yu Fang Zheng in the front row, who had first-class qualifications, their eyes filled with envy and jealousy. At the same time, some eyes also drifted towards the corner of the last row of the classroom. In the corner by the window, Gu Yu Fang Yuan was sound asleep with his head on the table. "Look, still sleeping," someone said softly. "Have you been sleeping for a whole week already and still haven't recovered?" someone scoffed. "Not only that, I've heard that he doesn't return home at night and wanders around the outskirts of the village. Some people have seen him more than once, holding a wine jar and getting drunk outside at night. Fortunately, in recent years, the area around the village has been cleared, making it relatively safe." The classmates whispered to each other, and various rumors quickly spread. Alas, the blow is indeed too great. Having carried the title of genius for so many years, I never expected to end up being just a third rate. If that's the case, then so be it. But my own younger brother has been tested as a first class, and now he is the center of attention, enjoying the best treatment. The younger brother is in heaven, while the older brother is on the ground. TSK. Hearing the increasingly loud discussions around him, the head of the school had his brows furrowed into a knot. In the entire classroom, the boys sat upright, exuding vitality, which made Fang Yuan, who was sprawled on the desk, even more conspicuous and eye-catching. "It's been a week, and you're still so dejected." "Humph, I was blind back then. How could someone like this possibly be a genius?" The elder of the family coldly snorted in displeasure. He had already talked to Fang Yuan about this many times. But it was of no use. Fang Yuan still did as he pleased. He slept through every class, which made the elder responsible for teaching very headache-inducing and infuriating. Forget it, it's just a third rate. If he can't even withstand this little setback, with such a temperament cultivated, he won't be of much use and will only waste the family's resources. The elder was very disappointed in Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan is only of grade C aptitude, while his brother Fang Zheng has grade A aptitude, which is why he is the one worth the family investing great effort to cultivate. The family elder of the academy thought to himself while continuing the previous topic. In the history of our clan, there have been many strong individuals. Among them, there are 2 fifth-turn strong ones. One is the generation's clan leader, our ancestor, who founded the ancient Moon Mountain village. The other is the fourth-generation clan leader. With exceptional talent, he cultivated to the realm of a fifth-turn Gu master. If it weren't for that despicable and shameless demon, the Flower Wine Traveler, launching a surprise attack, he might have been able to advance to a sixth-turn Gu master. Alas! At this point, Master Guyue let out a deep sigh. Under the podium, the young boys began to shout in indignation. They are all those flower wine walkers, too treacherous and cunning. Unfortunately, our 4 generations of clan leaders were kind-hearted and passed away at a young age. I only regret that I wasn't born a few hundred years earlier. Otherwise, when I see that demon, I will definitely fight to expose his ugly face. The story of the 4th-generation clan leader and the Flower Wine Walker is known by every member of the Ancient Moon clan. The Flower Wine Walker is also a fifth-turn Gu master, a notorious flower thief who has committed many evils over the years and was well known in the demonic path at that time. Hundreds of years ago, he fled to Qingmao Mountain, attempting to commit a crime in the Ancient Moon stronghold, but was recognized by the 4th-generation clan leader. After a shocking and earth-shattering battle, the Flower Wine Walker was brought to his knees, begging for mercy. The 4th-generation clan leader, being kind-hearted, intended to spare his life. As a result, the Flower Wine Walker suddenly launched a surprise attack, severely injuring the 4th-generation clan leader. The patriarch was furious and shot the Flower Wine Walker on the spot, but then he was also seriously injured and died. Therefore, in the hearts of all the Ancient Moon clan members, the 4th-generation clan leader is a heroic figure who sacrificed for the stronghold. Is it the Flower Wine Walker? Awakened by the denunciation in the classroom, Fang Yuan opened his hazy eyes in the corner. He stretched out lazily and thought to himself, where exactly did this Flower Wine Traveler die? Why have I searched all around the mountain stronghold and still haven't found his inheritance? In my memory, about 2 months later, a clan shaman who was drunk due to a broken heart lay outside the mountain village in a drunken stupor, and the overwhelming smell of alcohol unexpectedly attracted a wine bug. The Gu master was overjoyed and wanted to capture it. The wine bug hurriedly fled, and the Gu master relentlessly pursued it, following the trail of the wine bug and discovering a hidden cave entrance leading underground. The wine bug is a very precious type of curse. The curse master, filled with the spirit of wine, ventured into the cave entrance and arrived underground. Then he discovered the corpse of the Flower Wine Traveler, along with the remaining legacy. After the Gu master returned to the mountain stronghold, he reported all his findings, which immediately caused a great sensation throughout the entire family. The shaman also benefited from this. His cultivation became even more outstanding, which in turn attracted the former lover who had once abandoned him to change her mind. He became a prominent figure for a time. Unfortunately, I only heard about this news vaguely and do not know the exact location. At that time, I never thought there would be a day of rebirth. Flower Wine Walker, where exactly did you die? These days, he has bought a lot of alcohol and has been wandering around the mountain village at night. He wants to attract the wine bug with the scent of the alcohol. Unfortunately, he hasn't seen the wine bug, which is quite disappointing. If I can find that wine bug and refine it into my life bug, it would be much better than the moonlight bug in the family. In the blink of an eye, it's already April. Time waits for no one. Fang Yuan sighed and turned his gaze to the window. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the lush mountains stretch endlessly. Nearby is a bamboo forest. This is the unique spear bamboo of Qingmishan, each one straight as a line, with exceptionally sharp tips, like the tip of a spear. The nearby woods have already turned a fresh green. The budding shoots are a patch of yellow-green. Occasionally, beautiful, colorful birds land on the branches. The spring breeze comes, wrapping the fresh air of the green mountains and clear waters, spreading it among people. Unknowingly, this class is coming to an end. The elder of the academy finally announced, "In this past week, I have taught you how to meditate and observe your own empty sea of essence, how to sit in meditation and mobilize the true essence within your body. Now it is time to refine your life-sustaining Gu. After this class ends, you will go to the Gu room in the academy to select your Gu insects. After selecting the goo insects, you will return home for secluded cultivation. Until you have refined the goo insects, you will come back to the academy for further classes. At the same time, this will also be your first assessment. Whoever can come out on top will receive a generous reward of 20 yuan stones. Oh! In the next moment, the entire classroom erupted in cheers. Finally going to refine the goo worm. So what kind of goo worm should I choose? Fang Yuan's eyes flashed with a glimmer of brilliance. Chapter 8. The things remain, but the people have changed. A goo room was established next to the school. The goo room is not large, only 60 square meters. In the practice of goo masters, goo insects are the key to strength. As soon as the class ended, the excited boys rushed towards the goo room. Queue up, come in one by one. A furious shout suddenly arose, as there were naturally guards outside the goo room. The boys went in one by one and came out. It was Fang Yuan's turn to enter the goo room. In this room, there is a great deal of space. The four walls are made into compartments, and these embedded squares are lined up next to each other. The squares vary in size, with the largest not exceeding a sandpot and the smallest no bigger than a fist. In the densely packed grid, there are various types of vessels. Some are gray stone basins, some are lush jade plates, some are exquisite grass baskets, and some are ceramic stoves. These vessels contain various kinds of poison insects. Some goo worms are silent, while others are very noisy, making all kinds of sounds like chirping, clucking, and rustling, gathering into a symphony of life. The goo worms are divided into 9 major levels, corresponding to the 9 transformation realms of goo masters. These goo worms are all first transformation goo worms. Fang Yuan glanced around and immediately understood. Generally speaking, a first-level goo master can only use first-level goo insects. If they forcefully activate higher-level goo insects, the goo master often has to pay an extremely heavy price. Moreover, the goo worms also need to be fed, and the cost of feeding high-level goo worms is often something that low-level goo masters cannot afford. For new goo masters, unless in special circumstances, they will choose a first-level goo insect for their initial refinement. The first goo worm refined by the goo master is of great significance, known as the life goo, intertwined with life and death. Once it is destroyed, the goo master will surely suffer a heavy blow. Alas, I originally hoped to obtain the wine bug of the flower wine walker and refine it into my life bug. But now, there is still no sign of finding the corpse of the flower wine walker, and I don't know when I will find it, or if someone else will discover it first. To be safe, I should choose a moonlight bug instead. Fang Yuan sighed inwardly while walking straight towards the left wall. On one of the layers slightly higher up in this wall cavity, there is a row of silver plates. Each plate has a worm placed on it. This goo worm is crystal clear and curved like a crescent moon, resembling a piece of blue crystal, exuding a serene aura against the backdrop of the silver base. The goo named Moonlight is the clan goo of the ancient Moon Clan, and the vast majority of the clan members choose it as their life goo. It is not a natural goo insect, but rather cultivated through the secret methods of the ancient Moon Clan. It does not exist elsewhere and can be said to be a symbol of the ancient Moon Clan. It is all a kind of moonlight curse that has been transformed, with extremely subtle differences. Fang Yuan casually picked one and held it in his hand. The moonlight goo is very light, comparable to the weight of a thin piece of paper. It occupies only a small area in the palm, about the size of an ordinary jade pendant. Fang Yuan held it in his hand and could see his obscured palm lines through it. After taking one last look and finding no issues, Fang Yuan put it in his pocket and left the goo room. Outside the goo room, there was still a long line. A boy who followed saw Fang Yuan come out and hurriedly ran into the goo room excitedly. If it were someone else who got the goo worm, their first reaction would be to take it home and quickly refine it. However, Fang Yuan did not rush to do so. He was still thinking about that wine worm. The wine bug is more precious. Although the moonlight bug is a specialty of the ancient Moon Mountain stronghold, it is not as helpful to the bug master as the wine bug. Leaving the goo room, Fang Yuan went straight to the tavern. "Shopkeeper, bring me 2 jars of aged wine." Fang Yuan rummaged through his pockets and placed the remaining fragments of yuan stones on the counter. These days, he comes here to buy wine, and then wanders around the nearby hills, intending to attract that wine bug to appear. The shopkeeper is a short, middle-aged fat man with a shiny face, and he has already remembered Fang Yuan after these days. "Guest, you have arrived." While greeting, he stretched out his thick and short chubby hand and skillfully wiped away the fragments of the elemental stone from Fang Yuan. He shook it in his hand again and felt that the weight was just right, and the shopkeeper's smile became a bit more friendly. Yuan stone is the currency of this world, used to measure the value of all goods. At the same time, it is a refined substance of the essence of heaven and earth, and it can also be used to help sorcerers improve their cultivation. It has both currency attributes and commodity attributes, very similar to gold on Earth. There has been a single gold standard on Earth, and in this world, there is a single Yuan stone standard. Compared to gold, the purchasing power of the Yuan stone is also quite astonishing. However, no matter how many essence stones there are, they cannot withstand continuous consumption like Fang Yuan's. 2 jars of wine every day. It's been a full 7 days. The original accumulated Yuan stones are almost all spent. Carrying 2 jars of wine out of the hotel, Fang Yuan's brows were slightly furrowed. Once you become a Gu master, you can directly extract pure true essence from the source stone to replenish the essence C in the empty orifice. Therefore, for a Gu master, the Yuan stone is not only currency but also a helper in cultivation. With sufficient elemental stones, the speed of cultivation can be significantly improved, which can somewhat compensate for certain shortcomings in aptitude. Tomorrow there will be no more Yuan stones to buy drinks, but the wine bug has yet to show up. Do I really have to refine the moonlight Gu into a life Gu? Fang Yuan felt a bit unwilling in his heart. After leaving the tavern, Fang Yuan was holding 2 jars of wine in his hands, walking while pondering. The old man from the academy said that the first person to refine their life Gu in this assessment will receive a reward of 20 Yuan stones. I'm afraid many people are at home putting in their all, refining Gu worms, trying to be first. Unfortunately, refining the life Gu is extremely demanding on one's aptitude. Those with good aptitude have a significant advantage. With my 3rd-class aptitude, I have no hope of winning at all, regardless of any other means. Just then, a voice came from behind. "Brother, you really came to the tavern to drink again. Come with me. Uncle and Aunt want to see you." Fang Yuan stopped and looked back. I found that my brother no longer spoke with his head down like before. The 2 brothers' gazes collided. A gust of wind howled in, lifting up the older brother's messy black hair and blowing up the younger brother's hem in just a short month. Everything has changed and people are no longer the same. The Enlightenment ceremony a week ago was a huge change for both the older brother and the younger brother. Elder brother Fang Yuan fell from the clouds, his genius halo ruthlessly stripped away by others. Meanwhile, the younger brother began to shine, like a new star, rising slowly. This change has a profound significance for my younger brother Gu Yuefang. He finally tasted the feelings his brother had at the beginning, being someone on whom others placed their hopes, being looked at with envy or jealousy. He felt as if he had suddenly emerged from a dark corner into a bright paradise. Every day when he wakes up, he feels as if he is in a beautiful dream. The vastly different treatment makes it hard for him to believe even now, and he also feels a strong sense of discomfort. Not suitable. Suddenly going from being unknown to being closely watched and pointed at by others. Sometimes when Fang Jing is walking on the road and hears passers-by discussing and praising him, he feels his face burning, at a loss for what to do, and his gaze evasive, almost not knowing how to continue walking. In the first 10 days or so, Gu Yuefang inexplicably lost some weight, but his energy and spirit became even more vigorous. From the deepest part of his heart, something called self-confidence began to grow. This is the feeling my brother had before, truly wonderful yet painful. He couldn't help but think of his brother Gu Fang Yuan. How did his brother cope with such discussions and attention back then? He subconsciously began to imitate Fang Yuan, pretending to be expressionless, but soon realized he wasn't cut out for it. Sometimes in the classroom, a girl's shout can make him turn bright red. On the road, the teasing from older women makes him flee in embarrassment multiple times. He is like a baby learning to walk, stumbling and adapting to a new life. In this process, he inevitably heard rumors about his brother, depressed and dispirited, turning to alcohol, staying out all night, and sleeping in class. He was initially shocked. His brother, such a powerful and talented being, had actually become like this? But gradually, he began to understand a little. His brother is also an ordinary person, and it is inevitable to feel down after encountering such setbacks and blows. With this understanding, Fang Zheng faintly felt a surge of indescribable pleasure. This feeling of exhilaration is something he is very reluctant to admit, but it does exist. The brother who was praised as a genius, who once suppressed his own brother like a shadow, is now so down and out. This, in contrast, further witnesses one's own growth, doesn't it? I am excellent. This is the truth. Therefore, seeing Fang Yuan carrying a wine jar, with disheveled hair and disheveled clothes, Guyu Fangjing let out a heavy sigh of relief in his heart, and his breathing inexplicably became much lighter. But he said, "Brother, you can't drink anymore. You can't go on like this. You don't know how worried the people who care about you will be. You need to pull yourself together." Fang Yuan had a blank expression and did not speak. The two brothers looked at each other. The younger brother Gu Yu's eyes sparkled with a sharpened tint, while the older brother Fang Yuan's eyes were deep and dark, like a quiet, ancient pond. Such eyes made Fang Zheng feel an inexplicable sense of oppression. After a brief moment of eye contact, he instinctively shifted his gaze to the other side. But when he reacted, a surge of anger suddenly rose in his heart. An anger towards oneself. What's wrong with me? Do I not even have the courage to make eye contact with my brother? I have changed. I have completely changed. Thinking this way, his gaze became sharp again and swept over. But Fang Yuan no longer looked at him. Instead, he was holding a jar of wine in one hand. Walking past him, and a calm voice came. "What are you still dazed for? Let's go." As Fang Zheng's breathing became chaotic, the pent-up breath in his heart had nowhere to be released, which made him feel an indescribable frustration. Seeing that his brother had already walked far away, he had no choice but to quicken his pace to catch up. This time, however, he did not lower his head, but raised it to face the setting sun. His gaze was fixed on his own feet, stepping on his brother Fang Yuan's shadow one step at a time. Section 9. Gradually moving away. The red sun is setting in the west, but it has not completely gone down yet. The sky still has light, but everything seems to be covered with a layer of gray. Looking out through the window, the distant mountains are gradually leaning towards a heavy black. The living room is dimly lit, and my uncle and aunt are seated in the main seats. Their faces shrouded in shadows, making it hard to see them clearly. Seeing the 2 jars of wine that Fang Yuan brought with him, Uncle Gu Yudong too frowned. He said, "Time flies, and you are already 15 years old. You both have the qualifications of Gu masters, especially Fang Zheng. Your uncle and aunt are proud of you. I will give each of you 6 yuan stones. You 2 brothers take them. Refining Gu worms consumes a lot of true essence, and you will need these yuan stones." As he spoke, a servant came over and handed each of the Fang brothers, Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng, a small bag. Fang Yuan put away the bag and fell silent. Fang Zheng immediately opened the bag and saw that it contained 6 oval grayish-white essence stones. His face instantly showed a look of gratitude, and he stood up from his seat to bow to his uncle and aunt, saying, "Thank you, uncle and aunt. I really need these essence stones to replenish my true essence. I will always remember the kindness you have shown in raising me, and I will never forget it for the rest of my life." Uncle smiled and nodded. Aunt quickly waved her hand, and the other party said gently, sit down quickly. Although you 2 brothers are not our biological sons, we have always treated you as our own children. We feel proud that you have been successful. Alas, we have no children of our own, and sometimes we think it would be great if you could truly become our children. This statement is very meaningful. Fang Zheng didn't catch it, but Fang Yuan frowned slightly. Sure enough, Uncle then said, "I have discussed with your aunt about adopting you into our family, to become a real family. Fang Zheng, I don't know if you're willing." Fang Zheng was taken aback for a moment, but soon a look of joy appeared on his face, and he readily agreed. To be honest, ever since my parents passed away, I have longed for a day of family reunion. It would be wonderful to become a family with my uncle and aunt. Aunt's expression relaxed, and she smiled. Then you are our good son. Do you still call us uncle and aunt? Father, mother. Fang Zheng suddenly realized and quickly changed his words. Uncle and aunt both laughed heartily. Good son, it was not in vain that we, as a couple, raised you since you were 5 years old. We have raised you for a full 10 years. Aunt wiped her tears. Uncle then looked at the silent Fang Yuan and said gently, Fang Yuan, what is your intention? Fang Yuan shook his head and remained silent. Brother, Gu Yu was about to persuade, but was stopped by his uncle. The uncle's tone remained unchanged, and he said, Since that's the case, nephew Fang Yuan, we won't force you. But you are already 15 years old, and it's time to establish your own connections. This way, it will also be convenient for you to inherit the Fang family's branch. I have prepared 200 yuan stones for you as support. 200 yuan stones. Fang Zheng's eyes widened in surprise. He had never seen so many yuan stones and couldn't help but show a look of envy. Little did they know, Fang Yuan still shook his head. Fang Zheng was puzzled, but his uncle's expression changed slightly, and his aunt's face also darkened. Uncle and aunt, if there are no other matters, I will take my leave first. Fang Yuan did not give them a chance to speak again, dropped this sentence, picked up the wine jar, and directly left the hall. Fang Zheng stood up and said, Father, mother, brother is momentarily confused. Why don't I try to persuade him? Uncle waved his hand and sighed deliberately. Alas, this matter cannot be forced. You have this intention, and as a father, I am already very comforted. Come, take care of young Master Fang Zheng and let him settle down well. The son has taken his leave. After Fang Zheng left, the living room fell into silence. The sun has completely set, and the living room is becoming increasingly dim. After a while, a cold voice from my uncle came through the dimness. It seems that this little brat Fang Yuan has already seen through our scheme. The clan rules of the Gu Yu family clearly state that the eldest son at the age of 16 is qualified to inherit the family property. Fang Yuan's parents have passed away, leaving behind a considerable inheritance, which is being managed by his uncle and aunt. The value of this inheritance is not something that can be compared to just 200 yuan. If Fang Yuan were to be adopted by his uncle and aunt like Fang Zheng, he would not be qualified to inherit this estate. If Fang Yuan is 15 years old this year, he also does not meet the clan's regulations for inheriting family property. Fortunately, we have won over Fang Zheng, while Fang Yuan only has a third-class qualification. The uncle sighed again, feeling extremely fortunate. That old man, Fang Yuan, is clearly going to go out at 16. What should we do? Aunt's tone became urgent as she thought of that inheritance. Since he has ulterior motives, we can't be blamed. As long as we catch his major mistake before he goes out and expel him from the house, we will also deprive him of his inheritance rights, the uncle snorted coldly. But how could this little brat Fang Yuan be so smart and still make a mistake? Aunt was puzzled. Uncle immediately rolled his eyes and whispered, You are really stupid. He won't make a mistake. Can't we frame him? Just let that girl Shen Shui go seduce Fang Yuan first, then scream that he assaulted her. We'll catch him red-handed and frame him with the outrageous crime of drunken debauchery. Are we still afraid we can't get rid of Fang Yuan? Master, you still have a way. What a clever plan. Aunt was instantly overjoyed. The rich night fell, and the vast stars were mostly obscured by the drifting clouds. The houses in the village gradually lit up. Gu Yu Fangjing was led into a room. Young Master Fangjing, this is a room that the master personally instructed the old servant to prepare for you, specially set aside. Granny Shun introduced eagerly, bowing her waist, her face full of flattering smiles. Fangjing looked around for a week, his eyes shining. This room is twice as big as the one he originally lived in, with a large bed in the center, a sandalwood desk on one side of the windowsill, adorned with exquisite writing tools, and the walls surrounded by beautiful decorations. Even the floor beneath his feet is not an ordinary one, but covered with a layer of soft handmade carpet. Since childhood, Fang Zheng has never lived in such a room. He nodded repeatedly and said, This is great, really nice. Thank you, Granny Shun. This Granny Shin is the person most valued by my aunt, managing the servants in the household, and is a true housekeeper. Fang Yuan's personal maid, Shen Shui, is her daughter. Old Madam Shen chuckled. How could this servant dare to accept your thanks, young master? It's only right, only right. You just eat well and sleep well, and if you want anything, just ring the bell by your bed, and someone will come up immediately to attend to your needs. The master has instructed that during this time, you should focus solely on your cultivation and leave all the other trivial matters to us servants. Fang Zheng felt a surge of gratitude once again. He didn't say anything more, but silently made up his mind. This time he must win first place and not let his uncle and aunt down. The dark clouds in the sky are getting heavier, and the night is becoming increasingly deep. The stars in the night sky are almost all obscured by the clouds, leaving only a few that shine with faint light, struggling in the sky. My uncle and aunt must be plotting how to drive me out of the house. In my previous life, they secretly instigated the servants to provoke me, then framed me, and finally expelled me from the house. I wonder what changes will happen in this life. Fang Yuan walked down the street, coldly laughing to himself. He had long seen through the true nature of his uncle and aunt. However, it can also be understood. People die for wealth, birds die for food. Whether on earth or in this world, there are always so many people who trample on family ties, friendship, and love for the sake of profit. In fact, there is no familial affection at all. The main purpose of uncle and aunt adopting Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng was simply to covet the inheritance. It was just that the two brothers, Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng, frequently surprised them. Everything is difficult at the beginning, and for me, it is even more so. First, I have no exceptional talent, and second, I have no guidance from mentors, which is equivalent to starting from scratch. My parents' inheritance can be said to be a great springboard for me. In my previous life, my inheritance was taken away by my uncle and aunt, causing me to waste 2 whole years before I reached the peak of the first transformation. In this life, I cannot make that mistake again. Fang Yuan walked while thinking like this. He didn't stay at home, but instead carried 2 jars of wine, heading straight outside the village. The night sky is becoming increasingly gloomy, with dark clouds obscuring the starlight, and the mountain wind is blowing fiercely, showing a trend of gradually intensifying. The mountain rain is about to come. However, exploration is still necessary. The inheritance from his parents must be reclaimed, but that will have to wait until he turns 16 next year. As for the treasures left by the flower and wine wanderer, those are things that could be obtained in the near future. On the street, there are few pedestrians. Dim light seeps from the houses by the roadside, along with some trivial household garbage and leaves and dust, blown by the wind, drifting aimlessly. Fang Yuan's thin clothes could not completely block the mountain wind, and he couldn't help but feel a chill. He simply opened the jar of wine he was carrying and took a small sip. Although it was cloudy wine, a warm feeling rose up after swallowing it. This is the first time he has really drunk alcohol in these days. The further you go out of the village, the sparser the houses by the roadside become, and the dimmer the lights are. Ahead, it is even more shrouded in darkness. The wind presses down on the mountains and forests, and in the night, the branches sway and make a howling sound, like a pack of beasts roaring. Fang Yuan's steps showed no hesitation as he left the village gate and gradually walked further into the darkness. Behind him is the bright and brilliant light of thousands of homes. In this light, there is a warm corner. Younger brother Gu Yuefeng was sitting at the desk, reviewing the notes taken in class. The room was brightly lit, and the solid walls blocked the cold wind. Next to him was a cup of warm ginseng tea, with steam rising gently. Young Master Fangzheng, the hot water for your bath is ready. Outside the door, Shen Shui's voice gently came through. Fang Zheng felt a stir in his heart, then bring it in. Shen Shui walked into the room with a charming expression, swaying her waist. Servant has seen young Master Fang Zheng. She looked at Fang Zheng with eyes full of autumn waves. Fang Yuan was only of third-class status, but Fang Zheng had first-class qualifications. Being able to associate with him was the true path to great wealth. Chapter 10. The heavens have unpredictable winds and clouds, and refining poison insects is particularly arduous. Clap, clap, clap. The rain, as big as soybeans, is falling densely. It hits the lush bamboo building, making a crisp sound. In the pond in front of the building, the water surface is being pelted by raindrops. Fish are happily darting around in the water, and the water plants are swaying at the bottom of the pond. The sky is overcast, and the entire view is obscured by a thick curtain of rain. In a dimly lit room, with the window open, Fang Yuan quietly watched the heavy rain, sighing softly in his heart. It has been 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days ago that night, he carried 2 jars of wine, left the mountain stronghold, and continued to explore the surroundings. But by midnight, it started to pour heavily, being drenched like a drowned rat and not talking about him. The key is that in such circumstances, one can no longer explore around. Rainwater can quickly wash away the smell of alcohol, and if one forces exploration in the rain, it may raise suspicion. Previously, it was a disguise of being a disheartened alcoholic to conceal the true motive. But never underestimate the wisdom of others. Often only a fool thinks others are foolish, so, helplessly, Fang Yuan had no choice but to terminate the exploration. And this rain started and continued without stopping, sometimes heavy, sometimes light, sometimes sparse, sometimes dense. In this way, the wine bug will not be found in a short time. To be safe, I can only start refining the moonlight goo. During this refining process, it would be best to find the wine bug. If not, I can only make do with this. However, this is quite common. Unexpected events can happen. Who in this world can always do things smoothly and perfectly? Fang Yuan's state of mind was very calm. 500 years of experience had long washed away the restlessness that was already minimal in his temperament. He closed the window and the door, sat down on the bed, slowly closed his eyes, and after regulating his breathing, he sank his mind into stillness. In the next moment, the scene of my own empty cavity appeared in my mind. Although the empty cavity is housed within the body, it is extraordinarily mysterious, infinitely large, and infinitely small. The outer side of the hollow cavity is a layer of light membrane. The white light membrane gives a very thin feeling, but it truly supports the hollow cavity. In the empty cavity, there is a vast ocean of true essence. The seawater is bronze-colored, the surface is as calm as a mirror, and the water level is about half the height of the empty cavity. The entire Yuan Sea occupies 44% of the empty cavity. This is the bronze source sea of a turning sorcerer, where every drop of seawater is true essence. It is Fang Yuan's life force, the condensation of Fang Yuan's spirit and energy. Every drop of true essence is precious because it is the foundation of a goo master and the source of power. It is with true essence that a goo master can refine and activate goo worms. Fang Yuan opened his eyes as his mind withdrew from the primordial sea and took out the moonlight goo from his bosom. The moonlight goo lay quietly in Fang Yuan's palm, like a curved blue moon, small and exquisite, crystal clear. With a thought from Fang Yuan, the Yun Hai and the Kong Chao began to churn, and a stream of true essence broke through the surface of the sea, mobilizing to the outside, all pouring into the moonlight goo. The moonlight goo suddenly burst forth with a faint blue glow, trembling slightly in Fang Yuan's palm, resisting the influx of Fang Yuan's true essence. Goo is the essence of heaven and earth, the code of the great Tao, and the carrier of laws. It is also a living being, born free and existing with its own will. Now Fang Yuan wants to refine it, which means erasing its will. Sensing this crisis, the moonlight goo will naturally resist. The refining process is very difficult. The moonlight goo is like a crescent moon, with bronze-colored true essence injected into the crescent, which first dyes the 2 tips of the crescent green. Then this bronze green began to spread towards the middle section of the crescent moon. In less than 3 minutes, a pallor appeared on Fang Yuan's face. A large amount of true essence continuously surged into the moonlight goo, causing waves of weakness that drained his energy and marrow to relentlessly assault his heart. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 8 directions, 9 points, 1 share. 10 minutes later, Fang Yuan's original essence had consumed a full 10%. However, on the surface of the moonlight bug, which resembled blue crystal, the 2 points of bronze green at the tip of the crescent moon had only expanded a tiny bit in area towards the middle section. The resistance of the moonlight worm is very strong. Fortunately, Fang Yuan had anticipated this and was not surprised, insisting on infusing true essence into the moonlight goo. 10%, 20%, 30%. Another 20 minutes passed, and only 1/4 of the original essence remained in Fang Yuan's body. The bronze green of the moonlight goo expanded slightly, and if the two patches of green were to be combined, it would be about 1/12 of the surface area of the entire moonlight goo. As for the rest, it is still the light blue color of the moonlight goo itself. Refining the goo is difficult. Seeing this scene, Fang Yuan sighed softly, cut off the supply of true essence, and no longer continued to refine this moonlight goo. At this moment, the refining of the goo has taken a full half hour, and the empty Qi Yuan Sea has already consumed more than half, leaving only 14% of the true essence remaining. Meanwhile, the moonlight goo has only just refined 1/12. Moreover, what is even harder to accept is that the moonlight goo still emits a faint blue halo. Although Fang Yuan has stopped refining it, it has not ceased to resist and is still expelling Fang Yuan's bronze true essence. Fang Yuan could clearly feel that the true essence flowing into the moonlight goo was being gradually expelled by the moonlight goo, dissipating into the outside. On the surface of the moonlight goo, the bronze green at the tips of the two crescent moons was also slowly shrinking. Based on this reduced speed estimate, in about 6 hours, the moonlight goo will be able to expel all of Fang Yuan's true essence. By then, refining this goo worm will be no different from starting the ritual from scratch. Every time I refine a goo, it's like two armies in battle, fighting a war of attrition. The goo insect has only been refined to 1/12, while my true essence has been consumed by a full 30%. A goo master must continuously supplement their true essence while refining, consolidating the results of their victory. Refining goo tests not only the skill of mobilizing true essence, but also the patience for a protracted battle. Fang Yuan thought to himself while taking a piece of essence stone out of his money pouch. The goo master needs to replenish the consumed true essence, usually in 2 ways. One way is natural recovery. After a period of time, the Yuan Sea will automatically replenish true essence. For someone like Fang Yuan with C-grade aptitude, it takes about an hour to replenish 4 parts of true essence. After 6 hours, he can recover 24% of the total true essence. The second method is to draw natural elemental power from the source stone. The original stone is a treasure of nature Ningjia Tanran Junyan and can be absorbed by goo masters. Fang Yuan held the source stone in his hand, continuously drawing out natural true essence from it and merging it into his empty Chao Yun Ha. The delicate luster of the original stone's surface gradually faded, while the level of the original sea and Fang Yuan's surroundings continuously rose at a visibly rapid pace. About half an hour later, Yuan Hai returned to 44% of its volume. At this point, the trend of the sea surface rising came to an abrupt stop. Although there was still space in the void, Fang Yuan could no longer store more true essence. This was the limitation of his third-class aptitude. Thus, it can reflect the important role of cultivation qualifications. The higher the qualification, the more true essence is stored in the empty cavity, and the faster the true essence naturally recovers. For Fang Yuan, to refine the goo worms and consolidate the results, he must absorb the essence stones, because the speed at which his true essence naturally recovers is not as fast as the speed at which the moonlight goo expels true essence. However, for a first-class qualification like Fangjing, he can replenish 8 parts of true essence per hour. In 6 hours, he can recover 48 parts of the total true essence, while the moonlight goo can only expel 30 parts of true essence in the same 6 hours. He doesn't even need external help like the elemental stone. He can refine it continuously like this, taking a few breaks in between, and after a few days, he will successfully refine the moonlight goo. Therefore, Fang Yuan knew from the very beginning that he had no chance of winning first place in the assessment of refining the moonlight goo. This is not related to strength, but rather talent is the primary factor in this matter. The second factor is the source stone. If the source stone is abundant and one is willing to expend it, a person of second-rate talent may also surpass those of first-rate talent and seize the first place. I only have 6 pieces of elemental stones in my hand, which can't compare to those like Guyu Mo Bei and Guyu Chi Chung who have the support of their elders. My aptitude is only of the 3rd rank, which is also not as good as the 1st rank aptitude of Guyu Fangzheng. This assessment originally had no chance of winning at all, so it's better to disperse my energy and look for the wine bug. If I can refine the wine bug into a life bug, it would be much better than the moonlight bug. The sound of rain outside has lessened, and it seems to show signs of stopping. This heavy rain has been falling for 3 days and 3 nights, so it should be stopping soon. Fang Yuan put away the moonlight goo, got off the bed, and was about to open the window when a knock on the door sounded. Outside the door came the voice of the close maid. Xin Shui, young master Fang Yuan, it is I. It has been raining continuously for 3 days, and I have brought you some food and wine. Young master, please eat and drink a little. It can help relieve some fatigue and boredom.